Good evening and thanks for joining us. Biche RCMP are asking for the public's help in locating a missing man. Brian McCormack was last seen at the Biche Inn on January 23rd of this year. He was working in the area and his family says his disappearance is out of character. McCormack is described as 5 feet 10 inches and approximately 180 pounds. He has brown eyes and a shaved head. He was last seen wearing a black leather jacket, blue jeans, and a dark baseball hat and orange running shoes. Now, if you have any information on Brian McCormack's whereabouts, you're asked to call your local RCMP or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Piles of grain on the ground just waiting to go to ports. This is a devastating reality for a lot of farmers across the prairies. Now, just this week, the federal government announced they are launching a $1.5 million study to come up with solutions for this transportation issue. Annika Knopfait speaks to a local farmer about the backlog of grain he's been experiencing so far.
I've never seen it anything like this. At times during peak season at harvest time, we've seen maybe a month or 6 weeks where things get backlogged. But today's situation, we're upwards of 4 or 5 months.
Craig Gabrielson runs a medium-sized farm outside of Lloydminster and says they recently just got the grain from storage bags on the ground and into bins. Something that should have been done months ago, but there wasn't room. He says the slow railway system poses a big problem on getting the grain to ports.
It definitely frustrates us. You can't control everything in farming, and this is one of the things that is out of our control. Anything that impacts your bottom line as much as increased freight costs do, it's a huge problem.
And a troublesome fact is these costs are rising.
I do worry for my business. I think, like I say, we've seen increased costs on freight upwards of, 20 to 40%. And, as we see prices go down, that comes off your bottom line. So it's a huge cost. There's always a cost to carrying grain. You run the risk of spoilage. The longer you keep grain in storage, there's always opportunity costs and interest costs. Bills have to be paid and paid on time.
Federal Agriculture Minister Jerry Ritz wants to assure farmers they take this issue very seriously.
A quorum monitoring out of Edmonton is giving us data on a weekly basis as opposed to the monthly that they did, so that we can have up-to-date data on what's sitting in port, what's moving, who's plugged, how do we address it, where do we address with these trains.
He says this year's crop could become the new normal as there's a large demand, and he says the research starting now will be an asset to fixing the problem.
It's the industry that's leading this, so it's the actual producers themselves that will be doing the analysis as to what's going to be required to move that top quality Canadian product into markets every year.
But research takes time. And what about right now?
Anybody who's sitting on a bunch of grain in their bin and looking for the opportunity to move it, that opportunity will present itself, just not in the timely way that they're looking for. Having said that, then they have to avail themselves of these cash advances I just spoke of, or go back in and talk to the lending institution and work out a path forward.
Craig Gabrielson says this year has brought up a lot of concerns when it comes to transportation, but he's more worried about how the backlog of grain will affect next year.
This year was a huge crop. Some people say about 30% bigger than we've ever had before. But our productivity levels on the farm are increasing each year, and I don't believe our transportation industry is keeping up with that. That's money tied up in inventory, and it really is a cost to hold that grain.
But for now, the grain still sits, and the heavy silence of many unanswered questions remain. Annika Knopfait, Newcap News.
It was a stomp in good time at the Vic Juba Theatre last night as Canadian country music legends kicked off their first concert of the year in the border city. The packed house was treated to classic country music with legends like Hall of Famer Bev Monroe, Joyce Smith, Myrna Laurie, and more.
14th year that we've been together, and we get different guests, and we travel all over the place, any place that wants us to entertain. We do lots of fundraisers, and we just have a good time with the people.
We fit here because we're all country folks ourselves. Most all of us are country raised, so we fit right in. We can go out and pull calves with the farmer if we have to.
We take you back for the Hank Williams and the old stars of the Grand Ole Opry, and the ones that became cornerstones and started it for the generation today.
Their next stop is in Sherwood Park on Sunday.